Welcome to the Deep Dive from Discover U Radio's Discussions. I'm Robert Simmons.
And I'm Rita Fox.
Imagine this. A major public tragedy happens. And then, almost overnight, people start losing their jobs. Not for something they did, but for something they said online.
Yeah, it's a scenario playing out right now.
Exactly. Today, we're diving deep into that exact situation, the immediate and really widespread fallout following the assassination of conservative activist Charlie Kirk back on September 10th, 2025. So this deep dive is all about the intense debate, both public and professional, that this event has kicked off. We've gathered reports from, well, all over: Star Tribune, Al Jazeera, LA Times, FOX Business, NPR, The Guardian, USA Today, you name it.
A real cross-section of sources.
Definitely. We're trying to understand this wave of firings, suspensions, and underlying it all, the really heated discussion about free speech.
Right.
Our mission today, to unpack the complex relationship between what we say online, what our employers expect, and, frankly, the practical limits of free speech in this digital age we're all living in.
It's a tricky balance.
It really is.
Yeah.
Okay, let's explore this.
Let's do it.
So first, the event itself. The assassination of Charlie Kirk on September 10th. Obviously a tragic event. Huge shockwaves across the country.
Absolutely. A deeply polarizing figure, and the event itself was profoundly shocking.
But here's where it gets really interesting from the perspective of our discussion today. Almost immediately, our sources show this significant trend starting.
Which is?
Individuals, just regular people across the country, started facing severe professional consequences, like losing their jobs.
And this was for social media posts.
Yes, exactly. Posts that were seen as, celebrating or mocking or maybe just making light of his death.
And you said significant number.
Yeah, we're not talking about just one or two isolated incidents here. Reports point to dozens of people.
Dozens. Wow.
From all sorts of different jobs, different sectors, fired, suspended, put on administrative leave. It happened fast.
And I think what's fascinating here, or maybe sobering, is just the sheer breadth of professions that were impacted by these online comments.
Right. It wasn't just one type of job.
Not at all. It really paints a picture of how, pervasive and immediate the consequences of our digital speech can actually be. We saw examples from almost, every corner of professional life.
So give us some examples.
Okay, well, let's look at academia and education first. There was a pretty clear pattern there. At Middle Tennessee State University, an assistant dean was fired. The post said zero sympathy, and something like Kirk spoke his fate into existence, connecting it to his past comments on gun deaths.
Okay, strong words.
Definitely. Then, East Tennessee State University, 2 professors put on administrative leave over their online comments. Cumberland University, similar story, 2 employees fired for what the university called inappropriate social media remarks.
So, university level, quite a few instances.
Yes, and K-12 too. A school teacher in Oregon reportedly lost her job for saying Kirk's death really brightened up my day.
Oof.
Yeah. And multiple other teachers across the country apparently faced disciplinary action or were under investigation for similar things.
Okay, so education was definitely one area. What else?
Well, moving into government roles, the impact was just as clear, maybe even more surprising to some.
Like who?
A U.S. Secret Service agent placed on administrative leave. The Post apparently said Kirk spewed hate and racism on his show and that it was karma.
From a Secret Service agent. That's significant.
It is. Then FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, they put a data analyst on leave for comments on Instagram described as revolting and unconscionable.
Wow.
The Idaho Department of Labor fired a state employee. Their post apparently implied Kirk was in hell.
Okay.
And the New Orleans Fire Department opened an investigation into a firefighter. The comment called the bullet that killed Kirk a gift from God.
Again, very strong, controversial comments leading to immediate action.
Extremely. And then you look at the private sector and, it's a similar picture. Swift repercussions.
Any big names?
Well, MSNBC fired political analyst Matthew Dowd. This was after he suggested on air, actually, that Kirk's own hate speech had contributed to political violence.
So that was for something said on air, not just online.
Correct. But still part of this broader reaction. Then the Carolina Panthers, the NFL team, fired their communications coordinator for insensitive social media posts.
Sports world too, huh?
Yep. Major airlines, Delta suspended employees, American Airlines removed pilots from service, all citing violations of company policy related to posts.
Even pilots. Okay.
And it wasn't just big corporations. An Office Depot employee was fired. There was a video showing them refusing to print posters for a Kirk vigil.
I think I heard about that one.
And even small businesses. The co-owner of a Cincinnati restaurant apparently lost a contract after posting something offensive.
So it really runs the gamut. Big companies, small businesses, public, private.
Exactly. This pattern, it's not just a few scattered stories. It represents a really significant and very rapid wave of professional consequences tied directly to things people expressed online.
It really is a stark reminder, isn't it? About that digital tightrope we all seem to be walking now. But, okay, beyond the individual posts themselves, how did this wave, this series of consequences, gain so much momentum so quickly?
That's a really important question.
Because it felt like it happened almost instantly in some cases.
It did. And our sources point pretty clearly to, well, coordinated online campaigns being a key factor.
Coordinated campaigns? How so?
Conservative activists and groups Libs of TikTok was mentioned specifically in some reports. They actively collected these critical social media posts.
Collected them.
Yeah, screenshotted them, archived them, and then publicized them widely. And crucially, they often tagged the posters' employers directly in their posts.
The tag, so bringing it right to the employer's attention.
Exactly. That, combined with amplification from right-wing commentators who were condemning the remarks, really put pressure on employers and, well, accelerated the whole process.
Okay, so there was an organized effort behind amplifying these posts and demanding action.
That seems to be a major part of the story, yes. And if you connect that to the bigger picture, you see this powerful but also really controversial method of public accountability taking shape online.
Controversial how?
Well, this approach basically uses public outrage, sometimes manufactured or amplified, as a tool. Critics argue pretty strongly that these campaigns are essentially attempts to suppress speech they disagree with.
Creating a climate of fear. I think I saw that phrase used.
Precisely. The argument is it makes people afraid to voice certain opinions, even personal ones, for fear of becoming the next target and losing their livelihood.
Which then naturally brings up the whole free speech question again, right?
Absolutely. It raises that critical question. What are the actual legal protections for speech, particularly in your workplace, especially when emotions are running this high after such a sensitive event?
Yeah, what can you legally say?
Well, legal experts point out a key distinction. Most private sector employees, so people not working for the government, are usually subject to what's called at-will employment laws.
At will. What does that mean practically?
Practically, think of it like this. In most states, unless you have a specific contract saying otherwise, you can generally leave your job for any reason or no reason at all, right?
Right.
Well, at will means your employer generally has the same right. They can let you go for almost any reason or no reason, as long as it's not an illegal reason, like discrimination based on race, religion, gender, etc.
Okay, so not much protection there for just saying something your boss doesn't like.
Largely no. Your online speech, even personal opinions expressed outside of work hours on your own device, can potentially be grounds for termination if the employer decides it violates company policy, damages their reputation, or just isn't aligned with their values.
So the company gets to decide what's acceptable conduct, even online.
In most private employment situations, yes. Now, public employees, people working for government agencies, they might have stronger First Amendment free speech protections.
Might. Why only might?
Because even for public employees, those protections aren't absolute. They can be limited if the speech disrupts the workplace, interferes with their duties, or violates professional standards specific to their job. Think about that Secret Service agent example.
Right. So even for government workers, it's not a free-for-all.
Definitely not. It's a much more nuanced picture than just, I have free speech.
That distinction is just, well, it's absolutely crucial, isn't it?
It really is.
Because it's so natural to hear about these firings and suspensions and think, hang on a second. Charlie Kirk himself, wasn't he a huge advocate for freedom of speech?
That's a point many people have raised.
How does that square with people losing their jobs just for expressing an opinion, even a harsh one? It creates this interesting tension.
A real paradox for some observers.
You've got the principle of free expression on one side, but then you have these very real, very immediate professional consequences on the other. And this really hits at the core of how many people understand free expression, or perhaps misunderstand it. We have the liberty to make choices, to say what we want, sure. But those choices, that speech, it carries weight. It has consequences. You have the freedom to speak, but you aren't necessarily free from the result of that speech, especially when it comes to your job.
That's a critical point, the consequence part.
And for you, listening right now, navigating social media, your career, public opinion, understanding this distinction feels more critical than ever before. So what does all this mean for our sort of fundamental grasp of freedom of speech today?
Well, I think the key thing here is hammering home that distinction we touched on, the difference between freedom from government censorship and the consequences that can pop up in other parts of life, like your job.
Okay, break that down a bit more.
The First Amendment, the bedrock of free speech in the U.S., primarily protects you from the government retaliating against your speech.
Meaning the police can't arrest you just for saying something unpopular.
Generally, yes. The government can't usually jail you or fine you simply for expressing your opinions, however controversial they might be. That's the core protection. But private entities like your employer, your company, your boss, they aren't the government. They generally aren't bound by the First Amendment in the same way.
My boss is in Congress.
Exactly. The First Amendment restricts government power, not necessarily the rules a private company sets for its employees.
So the company can have its own rules about speech.
Absolutely. They can, and very often do, set their own policies about employee conduct. And that conduct increasingly includes online speech, even off-duty speech. They decide what aligns with their company values, their brand, their reputation.
And if your post violates that, even if it's legal speech, the government couldn't punish you for.
Your employer might still be able to discipline or fire you for it, especially under at-will employment.
So it's not really a contradiction of free speech principles, legally speaking.
Not in the constitutional sense, generally. It's more an illustration of the practical boundaries of that freedom and how speech operates differently in different contexts. The public square versus the private workplace. It really just highlights that our words have impact, consequences. Harsh words, especially in heated moments, can absolutely invite severe repercussions.
That's a really powerful and, I think, essential clarification for people to grasp. This whole deep dive just throws into sharp relief how, in this super connected world we live in, that line between a personal opinion typed online and your actual professional liability is, well, it's blurrier than ever.
Yeah.
And the stakes are higher.
Definitely seems that way.
We've seen just how quickly, how broadly these professional consequences can spread from social media posts, especially after something is charged as Kirk's assassination.
And the role of those online campaigns in speeding things up.
Right. And it all fuels this complex, ongoing debate. Where does free speech end and where does accountability begin in our digital lives? It almost makes you wonder, are we all potentially just one badly phrased tweet away from a career implosion?
It's a sobering thought, and it leads to a really important question for you, the listener, to consider.
Which is?
How do we, as individuals navigating this landscape, and maybe even as a society, manage this tension? The tension between that natural impulse to speak freely, to react instantly online, and the understanding that our words carry real weight, that they can have significant professional fallout.
Yeah.
What responsibility do we each hold for the impact of what we put out there digitally, especially when public emotions are running so incredibly high?
A lot to think about there.
It really is. It's a challenge we're all facing together in this relatively new digital public square.
Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We really hope this discussion has given you plenty to consider as you reflect on these complex issues yourself.
Hope so, too.
We'll catch you next time on The Deep Dive, right here on Discover U Radio's Discussions.